This is Talk is Sheep, a podcast by the Wild Sheep Society of British Columbia. Come along as we take conversations that matter to you into the high alpine.
Episode 39, Tony Caligiuri. Fantastic chat with Tony. Amazing.
Well, I'm so glad you said his last name because I'm like, no, I'll butcher it.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask him how to pronounce it, but on the podcast he mentions his uncle, and I was like, oh, okay, I wrote it down.
There we go. I saw the pen coming out fast and furious there. So
yeah. So wildfires. Before we went live here, you were talking about what's going on. We got some stuff happening in sheep country right now.
Yeah, the Lytton fire, unfortunately, has taken a turn to run northeast, and now, as literally as we were recording, Spence's Bridge has gone to an evacuation order. So, yeah, as you know, that's right in the heart of sheep country, and a couple of weeks ago, we unfortunately lost Lytton to this same fire, and it's doing some much needed habitat restoration, but at the cost of what, right? And where our thoughts are with the community of Lytton and all those affected by these fires, and hopefully they can get a handle on it.
Well, and hopefully that, we can convince our decision makers to start, doing some doing maintenance work instead of reactive work, right? That we start being proactive and not just losing towns that we don't have to. Like there's alternatives, right?
Exactly. Right. That we did a great podcast the other week with John Davies, and just we know as conservationists the importance of fire on the landscape, and the way John digs down into it. If you haven't heard that, listen, it's highly recommended. It's great to see somebody who's actually not only fought wildfires but works as prescribing them and works with organizations like the Wild Sheep Society to put fire on the landscape intentionally to stop things like this happening. And as you said, we need to be proactive instead of reactive. And that's the state we're in British Columbia when it comes to, well, pretty much everything. When it comes to fish, wildlife, and habitat, we're going, well, shit, here we are. And well, we knew 30 years ago, like there's a document right here in my hand from like mid 90s that says mountain caribou, and they're threatened. They knew 30 years ago that there was a problem, and yeah, February 99, and here we are still talking about what can we do. We're reacting instead of proactive. Like it's just frustrating, but that's a whole other conversation we're going to get into, right? So, yeah.
And interesting enough, Tony mentions that on the podcast here. It's one of the issues that he sees on the horizon for us. They're experiencing it down south as well. So, it's a big issue, and So, episode 39 with Tony. This is a great chat. I think a lot of those diehard sheep hunters out there are going to enjoy this. Tony talks a lot about his history, how he grew up, how he got into sheep hunting. He touches on the conservation work. We don't go hard over on the conservation end of things. And then he talks about joining the 700 Club and some of his favorite hunts and things he's done. So pretty fun podcast.
Yeah, totally. Some recognizable names for anybody that has done a little bit of reading or internet scouring about sheep hunting. And he's had a chance to not only hunt with them, but to become friends with some of them, and like, just holy crap, that's a who's who of not just sheep hunting, but hunting in general.
Yeah, absolutely. So, episode 39, Tony Caligiuri. Tony is, he's the treasurer for the Wild Sheep Foundation. I think he said he's executive vice president of conservation for Boone and Crockett Club.
Yeah.
And he's been on the conservation landscape.
If you looked up the words conservation superhero in the dictionary, you would see a picture of our friend Omer from Precision Optics. A tireless donor and supporter of all things wild sheep, Precision Optics, located in Quesnel, British Columbia, truly stands alone in the high alpine. From optics to rifles to outdoor gear and a knowledge that cannot be surpassed, toss in that killer smile and you have a total conservation package. Precision Optics, we are truly thankful for the support you show us every step of the way. Find them online at precisionoptics.net or in Aroma Foods, located just off Highway 97 in Quesnel, BC.
Well, good afternoon, Tony. How's it going?
It's going great, Kyle. How are y'all?
Fantastic. You coming to us from the great state of Iowa, or where are you at today?
I'm in Iowa. Actually. Yes, sir.
Very good. So, really happy to have you on the show, Tony. I've had the honor of working with you through the Wild Sheep Foundation and our board of directors, and you've done a fantastic job serving as our treasurer, and it's just been a pleasure to be working with you. So I'm hoping today that, we can touch base on kind of, where you came from, really, like, and maybe that's a good place to start. Like, talk about, you're so engrossed in conservation, the wild sheep community, and such an accomplished sheep hunter and a hunter in general. I'd kind of like to hear where that came from, kind of your upbringing and sort of these things that influenced you and where you came from.
Oh, sure. Thank you for that. I don't know how accomplished I am. I'm probably like most guys. I just follow the guides around and they tell me what to do, right, when it comes to sheep hunting. But I grew up hunting. I had my dad was just kind of an all around upland hunter. He just loved to hunt. He didn't have a lot of equipment or anything special, but my brothers and I and my dad, we hunted every weekend of the season, whether it was, rabbits or pheasants or quail or squirrels, and fished and hunted mushrooms in the spring and summer, and just had kind of an idyllic upbringing as far as hunting and fishing goes with my dad. And he was in the construction industry. So, we're outside with him all the time and in the woods and the timber, whether it was, running heavy equipment with him on job sites or working with him. And so we were always in an outdoor environment and got used to the cold Iowa winters and hot summers, and grew up reading Outdoor Life magazine and all the hunting books, and under the covers with a Army surplus flashlight at midnight when I was 11 and 12, and writing sheep outfitters. There were no cell phones or internet in the 60s, and posing or being an imposter sheep hunter when I was 12 years old. And I'm sure there's still some outfitters in the Yukon that would love to catch me after they wrote, 4 and 5 page letters back, not knowing that I didn't have any money and was only 12 years old and trying to book a sheep hunt. So just kind of like that. And then I had an opportunity in my late 20s to move to Arizona, lived out there for a while. And my wife drew a desert sheep tag. I drew a desert sheep tag, and then hunted in the Yukon for Dall sheep and at a pretty young age, fortunately. And then, you go through a spell where you're raising a family and not a lot of extra money. And then you kind of get all that out of the way. And then I guess the last 15 years or so, I've been really blessed to hunt sheep about every year, I guess. And so that's been great. Probably on the down leg side of it now, but have been really fortunate to hunt all of the North American species a couple different times over, and some of them several times over. And it's just been and it's not just sheep. I mean, I love to hunt everything, mostly do it yourself stuff, things with my son, whether it's he's a very accomplished hunter, and so we hunt elk together a lot. Just him and I, and antelope and deer, especially deer right at home here. We've got a pretty good whitetail population in Iowa, and then upland hunting. I've got 7 English setters and a couple English pointers. So I love pheasant and quail hunting, and we my friends and I and brothers and son, we hunt a lot of birds when the populations are on upswing. So and it ties into my job too. So I've been very blessed and fortunate, and blessed to have a wife that lets me go do all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Tony, would you say there's one hunt in particular that, if you could pick it every year, you'd go doing it? Is it upland game? Is it chasing whitetails? Is it chasing sheep? Is there one that stands out that if you could do it every year, that's the one you'd go to?
Oh, for me, it'd be pronghorns, because when you stop and think about it, that's the one hunt you can still do when you're 95 years old, So if I had to say one thing that I could, and it's very social, you get to spend a lot of time with your buddies. It's a hunt that you don't have to worry about a lot of logistics, or gear or equipment. You obviously don't need, tons of preparation, guides, outfitters, things like that. I mean, it's not that they're not a smart animal, because they can be, but, anybody can go hunt antelope pretty much. So it's a great hunt to introduce somebody into hunting. It's a great mentor hunt. It's a great hunt for old people, young people, and it's a great hunt for just friends to be together and ride around in a truck. People are always surprised when I say that, but stop and think about it. They're truly one of America's greatest conservation stories, that we brought them back to where they are when they were on the brink of almost extinction. They're great eating. There's thousands of them through a lot of the western states. The access is good. The economy of it is very, very reasonable. And like I say, from a physical demand standpoint, that's the one hunt that everybody can do from the time they're a little kid till the time they're on the rocking chair on the front porch for the last time. So it's one of my favorite hunts.
It sounds like a black bear. It sounds like a black bear hunt here in BC. Hey, Kyle, it's
Yeah.
like literally clicking off all those things. You ride around in a truck with your buddies. You don't
exactly
be in the best shape. It's great eating, conservation success story. It's but a pronghorn's been a bucket list for me for years, and Kyle knows that, right? That's why I was buying all those tickets for the life member draw we had, but I didn't get it. Maybe one day.
Well, 4 or 5 points in Wyoming, you have access to tremendous public land antelope hunting, and you don't need to do anything but get there.
Definitely. That's what I was going to ask you about, Tony. When you say that and you go on a pronghorn hunt, is it, is Wyoming kind of your go-to place? You build up your priority, or do you?
We have a lease in New Mexico. It's a smaller lease. We only take 2 to 3 antelope a year off of it. So New Mexico is a little different, and Colorado is kind of the same. But New Mexico, they let the landowners manage their antelope if they have private land. Colorado, you can get a ranching for wildlife tag, which is a 1-for-1 deal on most ranches. So if the rancher allows public tag holders to hunt that ranch, then they're rewarded or reciprocated with a private antelope tag. But Wyoming and Montana would be the go-to states for draw tags, and there's some units you can get a draw tag with 0 points or 1 points, or even by leftover tags. But Wyoming has some. I would say that's the go-to state for a draw tag, do-it-yourself hunt. Year before last, I drew a Unit 57 tag in Wyoming. Tons and tons of public land, and just really big antelope right near the road. I've drawn 2 Arizona antelope tags, and that's the really ultimate antelope hunt is if you can draw those Arizona tags, but that's a 15 to 25 point deal, so you got to wait a long time to draw those tags. And I doubt if I'll live long enough to draw another one.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So kind of on your past and stuff, Tony, did you have a hunting mentor? Was there somebody, you talked about reading Outdoor Life magazine and just being addicted from, the youngest age. Did anyone kind of mentor you? Or?
Oh, sure. My dad, for sure. I had my cousin Chuck Caligiuri, who was, into rifles and ballistics way before anybody else around here was, and shooting long distance. And, he was shooting 1,500 yards back in the 60s. So he got me into rifles when I was very young. And we would hunt a lot of coyotes when I was 16 and 17, and they prime coyotes, even Iowa coyotes, and then we're bringing $70 to $100. So it was worth our gas money to go hunt them. And he was very, very good at it. So my cousin Chuck, as far as rifles and big game hunting, my cousin Greg, who's 3 years older than me, took me hunting a lot. And so my two cousins and my dad were really, really my big mentor. I come from a giant family, so it's kind of neat. So we never lacked for hunting partners.
Yeah, fantastic. So Tony, you've been in, you talked about being 12 years old and back in the 60s and writing to these outfitters in the Yukon. And, can you talk a little bit about the evolution you've seen, and also professionally too, right? Like, I know that you are in the hunting industry professionally as well, through your business. Could you talk a little bit, maybe, you can talk about the hunting industry in general, or if you want about sheep hunting, have you seen an evolution? To me, it looks like there's been a lot of change, but I haven't been engrossed in the sheep community like you have for several decades. So I'd like to kind of get your input on what your thoughts are on that evolution that you've seen since you were a young boy to where you are today.
Well, sure. I mean, the evolution obviously has been gear and technology. The game hasn't changed. The deer, elk, antelope, sheep still eat and live in the same places they did. It's a little bit crazy out there from a camo standpoint, from a long distance shooting standpoint, from an optic standpoint. I always wondered when that was going to happen, because we watch it in the fishing industry, and technology and gear changed about 20 years earlier than it did in the hunting industry. And when I went on my first sheep hunt in the Yukon in 1989 with Charlie Stricker, and a lot of guys will recognize that name. He started outfitting for sheep in 1956. So when I landed in camp, 1989, so 6 guys going out, 6 guys coming in the bonnet plume, 12 hunters. I was the only one that had a fiberglass stock on my rifle. So 12 rifles in sheep camp. Try that today. You're not going to see a wood stocked rifle in sheep camp. So no one had camo. No one had range finding binoculars. No one had a glass stocked rifle. Not going to happen today. Now that was a long, long time ago. Okay. But the evolution has been gear and technology. So those outfitters are still riding the same horses, still flying the same Super Cubs, still staying in the same camps where they used to. All those sleeping bags, the tents, the freeze dried food, the optics, the rifles, the calibers, the ballistics, sat phones. That's where the evolution has changed. Hunting techniques haven't changed. We still hunt sheep, same way we did then. If anything, in states like Alaska, the technology has been cut back. Obviously, the fly and hunt restrictions have changed over the year to where they're at the point now where they're not on par with the Yukon or the Northwest Territories or BC when it comes to thin horn sheep. And you've seen that change. Even the Northwest Territories are different than the other two provinces or Alaska when it comes to what you can do and what you can't do with flying restrictions and helicopters. So we've seen technology go up, seen technology go down. When Jack O'Connor went on a sheep hunt in the 40s, it was a month-long affair. So he had to take a train to the furthest point he could go in British Columbia. And then it was usually 7 or 8 days by horseback to get into hunting country. And so they might have been on the actual sheep hunt for 3 weeks and maybe even 4 weeks. My first sheep hunt was a 19-day hunt, and we had 39 horses for 3 hunters. You don't see that anymore. Those old pack train hunts are gone. So that's the evolution. It's faster, quicker, get in, get out. Quality of the rams haven't changed that much, with the exception of stone sheep. Probably, you look at those old pictures from the 60s when a lot of those outfitters in northern BC, when a 40-inch stone ram was the rule rather than the exception. But your quality of Yukon dolls, Alaska dolls, Northwest Territory dolls, and a lot of areas are every bit as good as what they were killing 30 and 40 years ago. So technology hasn't necessarily hurt it, but it's definitely changed it. And back to your original question, that's been the evolution, especially in clothing too, with the Gore-Tex and other waterproof, breathable fabrics and camo patterns. I think last count we had 120 licensed camo patterns on the market. Again, I'll go back to 1989 and subsequent sheep hunts right after that. The guides didn't even wear boots. They wore the little rubber type moccasins and a pair of wool socks, and blue jeans and a plaid shirt. So you're going to see that in sheep camp today? No, it's not going to happen.
No, absolutely. So, you talk about your first sheep hunt, 39 pack horses, 3 hunters, 19-day hunt. Versus, flying in a super cub and you're in and out. A lot of guys fly in for the opener, kill their sheep, and they're out some of them will fly out that same day of the opener, right? So, From your perspective, and you've been on a number of sheep hunts over the years, do you miss that? Was that more of a romantic and exciting and pleasurable experience to go on a 19-day hunt with 39 horses, or do you like the experience of flying into northern BC, kill your ram, fly out? Is it just different, or is there one that means more, or not? What's your feelings there?
No, that that definitely for me. Even though that's, we all get wrapped up in size and inches and record book rams. That's the smallest ram I've ever killed, but that's the most memorable sheep hunt that I've ever been on. You couldn't duplicate it today. Can most guys do that? Probably not. Of course, sat phones and inReach and Iridium Goes and things like that, I guess that helps people stay connected. But part of the romance of going on those long hunts is so you can forget all that stuff and be away from it. But reality is we've all gotten used to being connected, and we all want to know what's going on at home and in other parts of the world. And surely the modern landscape has changed that and forced us all to do that. But yeah, that was the most memorable sheep hunt of my life, and spending, anybody that knows Charlie Stricker, spending 3 weeks with him is an experience that no one can forget. I mean, we didn't have food half the time. It was, I didn't want to fill my caribou tag on that hunt, but we had to shoot a caribou so we'd have something to eat. He just didn't believe in taking a lot of food. And it was, we went into one camp that had kind of a camp roster on the tree, and people would carve their name in a tree the last last time anybody'd been in there was 1968. So to be able to do that and do that like similar to what a Jack O'Connor did, not exactly, because we flew into camp. We didn't ride all the way into camp, but we had a 3-day ride with cooks and wranglers and knockdown stoves, and he still used canvas tents, and so it was amazing. So for me, that's a way to do it. And there's a lot of guys that still like to do that, but finding hunters that have the time to do that, or the resources to do that is not the way it is now. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, well, let's pivot a little bit here. Tony, you got such a history in the conservation community. You've been on the board of directors with Boone and Crockett. You're currently the treasurer with the Wild Sheep Foundation and served as a director for a number of years with them. So where does your conservation, I guess, ethic come from? Is it something that was instilled with you as a young man through your upbringing and your father, or where did this passion for conservation come from, Tony?
Oh man, I think part of it's default, Kyle. I mean, it's like people just ask you to do stuff, and you're not smart enough to say no. So you get wrangled in, and I love doing it, and you do feel a sense of giving back, and I'm seeing that in my son now as he's volunteering to do conservation things, and maybe as we all get older, it's great to see people your age, because I probably didn't have that same passion for conservation when I was younger, and so you do have a sense of giving back, and you worry, what's it going to be like, and I get fueled too by this anti-hunting movement, and that they don't understand it and want to take it all away from us. So I get really passionate about being involved in causes that are hunter conservation related, where hunting happens, conservation happens. It's very, very true. So I think one thing, feeds another. And sometimes I'm just not smart enough to shut up and keep my hand down.
Yeah, fair enough. So you just mentioned, you made the statement about, worried about what it's going to look like. And I guess that's the allusion to, what conservation and wildlife is going to look like on the landscape in the future. What is your feeling on that, Tony? Are we doing good? Have we done a good job? Are we in good shape, or are we in trouble? What's your just general sense overall? And I'm not talking species specific. I'm talking just in general.
Sure. Well, I think we've done an okay job. I think there's lots and lots of work to be done. I think what's changed is the anti-hunting movement has been around since hunting. There's always been two sides to it. You can pick up any copy of any conservation or hunting magazine that you want, and you'll see references to organized anti-hunting going back in this country 100, 150 years. It's never not been there. What's changed it is social media, the internet, television, all of the access to images that don't show hunting in a favorable light, and we've been our own worst enemy in that regard. So that has given that movement lots and lots of fuel and made our job a lot harder, because that 75% of the general public that doesn't have a feeling on hunting, that we've always tried to convince that hey, hunters are good for hunting. We are the ones that in most cases protect wildlife or reintroduce it or raise the money to bring it back. Now they start seeing images that maybe don't put hunting in the best light and don't give a reflection to conservation. And it was probably a little safer, because in the old days when it was just print media, you could tell that story of conservation and pro hunting a lot better than being wrecked with a non-favorable image that shows up on the internet and never gets a chance to be defended. So it's made our job a lot tougher. And another challenge has just been outdoor TV, hunting related media has, in my opinion, and there's probably guys in our industry that would hang me up by the heels for saying this. We've kind of given young kids and beginning hunters this idea that if they don't kill the biggest buck or the biggest elk or the biggest bear in the world, that it's not a successful hunt, that it's all about size. And that's been a disservice to the whole hunting community. It's about the experience, and it's about conservation and what hunters do for it. And so we've the internet and TV shows in many regards have been a disservice to that.
So, you raised some very valid points, social media and then the outdoor industry, the effect that's had on it, the media industry. What are some of the things we can do moving forward? Where do we want to go? What can we do better to fix this? And, and it's an ongoing problem. And I know through the foundation, through our board of directors, I'm sure through your board of directors at Boone and Crockett, you guys have had great campaigns, Fair Chase, and a whole bunch of other campaigns that you've done that have been, I thought, very effective. Certainly in our community, but what can we do, or what do you see we need to do a little bit different outside our own industry to sort of, try and sort this mess out?
Yeah, I think we have to be very cognizant moving forward about what technology is going to do to us as hunters and to the hunting industry. You just saw in Arizona last month where trail cameras have been banned now, and I'm not saying trail cameras are a bad thing, but where you've got a concentration of trail cameras on public land where it actually can be documented that wildlife's being harassed, yet 100 different trail cameras on some water holes, and now you've created two factions within the hunting community with some outfitters against them and some outfitters for them. We have to be very careful, and we should try and prevent that in the future and all be on the same page, because once we're divided, it's hard to get united and people see fractures in that rock, and then they want to come in and split it even more. And that's going to be a real issue, especially with things like smart optics, where distances and ballistics are actually calculated with the push of a button in your scope, and takes a lot of this. I'm hesitant to say the word skill, but let's face it, that's what it is. If you've got a solid rest, all you got to do is push a button, and anybody can shoot a game animal at 700 and 750 yards. So I'm not sure that's a good thing. And we all need to come to some sort of agreement. Where are we going? What are we doing? What's technology's future role in the hunting arena? And as individual states start to dictate what those laws are going to be, how is it going to affect everybody? We saw it somewhat in the archery industry when compound bows first came out, and then moved to crossbows, and definitely saw it in the muzzleloader industry with inline muzzleloaders and sabos and optics, and now we're starting to see it in a more broad sense. And I think we've all got to be aware of what's going on there, and where it's going, and what individual states are doing and what they're going to do, and whether any of this could affect federal laws or federal land laws. We have to be extremely aware of policy in Washington, D.C. as administrations change, and what it means to us as hunters from an access standpoint and a predator control standpoint. I'm not a wolf guy. I'll go ahead and say it up front. And as more states reintroduce wolves, and as more wolves are found throughout the Western United States, I mean, you guys in BC have had to deal with it forever. We haven't, but it's going to continue to cause issues for our game animals. So, when you don't have federal administration or federal policy that's in sync with state policy when it comes to predator management, as we all know, you get a lot of things tied up in courts and nothing happens. So we've got a lot of issues that are coming around the bend, controversial and non-controversial, but still gonna affect us all.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, that's a really good overview on that. And so let's talk specifically about your conservation work. And now I don't know about this if I'm correct on this, but I believe you were on the board with Boone and Crockett prior to joining the foundation board. Is that correct, Tony?
That's correct. Yep. And I currently serve as Executive Vice President of Conservation for Boone and Crockett. It's a volunteer. Boone and Crockett's a club ran organization, so all of our titles are volunteer positions.
Okay. So do you mind maybe just diving into, just the high level stuff of the work that Boone and Crockett's doing and kind of the work that you're doing? And
you bet. So Boone and Crockett is probably most well known for the record book side. And that's not where the club started. The club started by a group of like-minded conservationist hunters who wanted to preserve not only habitat but access to habitat for the general public. And then the record book was added in the 30s as more of a way to benchmark some science and nationwide with game animals by recording measurements, but it became the gold standard for measuring a trophy. Some people like the Boone and Crockett measuring system, some don't. It rewards symmetry, and in some animals that's very important. Some maybe not so much. But Boone and Crockett's foundation is policy, and it tries to bring everybody together so we get clear thinking, pro hunting conservation policy through North America, so Canada, United States, and Mexico, that supports the North American model of conservation, which, in a nutshell, is that without hunting, there's not going to be any game animals. That's an oversimplified definition of the North American model, but really that's it. And without public access to hunting, everybody. It's one of the reasons I love Iowa so much. We're one of the last states in the nation where you can knock on the door and have a legitimate chance of hunting for free and killing a white-tailed deer that'll be in the Boone and Crockett record book. You guys have the same thing in BC. Where can you buy a stone sheep tag where you've got a chance to kill a record book stone sheep? So those kind of things are so important that we don't make hunting a privileged access sport only for people that have the means and resources to afford it. It needs to be an every man's opportunity. So Boone and Crockett is really on the forefront of that for land access and policy there. So we do a lot of work in Washington, D.C. It's funny because the general public only knows Boone and Crockett by the record book, which is still, my probably favorite part of the club, and a lot of history there. But it first and foremost is a conservation and policy organization. We don't own any land or do any habitat projects like Wild Sheep Foundation would do, or Rocky Mountain Elk. It's more a organization that has access to some high level state and federal like thinkers that we can try and get things done for the benefit of hunting and conservation.
Okay, so Tony, now with that in mind, what would you say is kind of the pressure point issues right now? What's kind of on the agenda right now with Boone and Crockett that's of concern that you guys are looking at, and kind of something that as a board that is something that you're really tending to and kind of keeping your eye on? Is there anything that you can share right now that's sort of up front center?
Sure. I mean, you guys, is it a little smoky up there right now?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Well, look at your neighbors, the lower 48. I mean, the way we've managed our forest for fire management, not conducive to wildlife health, and certainly what we're seeing now with the fires. So, we've all got to work together to do a better job in that. One of the things that Boone and Crockett and Wild Sheep both are very much on the forefront of is access to federal land. Again, grazing issues, not only from a disease management standpoint, but where you've got conflict with sheep and cattle and high country elk and mule deer with calving, the wolf and grizzlies from a predator management standpoint. So all of those policy efforts. So access management, timber and range health, be it fire, grazing, and hunter advocacy from a hunting rights standpoint, and the everyday guy. I think that's what sets BNC apart from maybe some of the other organizations out there. We're rooting for the little guy, and that's why the National Park System was created under the guidelines of Boone and Crockett. Ducks Unlimited was a spinoff from Boone and Crockett, and it's always been and looking out for everyone as far as North American hunters, and not just a particular group here or particular group there.
Awesome. Yeah. Fantastic work, Tony, and a lot of respect for Boone and Crockett and the great work that you guys continue to do day in and day out. So appreciate all your work with that. So let's pivot now and let's jump into the Wild Sheep Foundation. You're serving as treasurer on the board of directors, and love to hear kind of, and being treasurer, be love to get a bit of an update. I know in the conservation community, with COVID coming around, the pandemic, there was a lot of organizations that were in a lot of trouble. Some great organizations, but a lot of overhead, a lot of staff, and they started to flounder during COVID. I'd love to hear an update on the foundation, the financial health of that organization, and any concerns that you maybe have going forward with regards to it.
Sure. And so you're a commercial pilot, so I guess you can relate to the 35,000 foot view. But that's what it is. And you're also on the board, and thank you for all the work that you do, both for Wild Sheep and for Wild Sheep Society of British Columbia. I don't know how you have time to do your real job, because I feel that some days. But from a financial health standpoint, Wild Sheep came through the pandemic in really, really good shape. And one of the reasons, as you know, is we're not franchised with our individual chapters. So Wild Sheep's never been dependent on taking a cut from the individual chapters and their events. So a lot of conservation organizations that had to rely on that have historically relied on their chapter banquets, and some organizations, unfortunately, some states had over 100 events that had to be canceled. Fortunately, Wild Sheep never relied on that money, so that wasn't part of our income stream to start with. So, but what we did have was our annual convention. That was a big income generator. So through the leadership of Gray Thornton, we decided to do a virtual convention, and it paid off. We kept the continuity with our exhibitors, and more importantly, with our relationships that we had with state and provincial game managers. The permits sold at record amounts, so we were still able to generate that income for the individual state and provincial governments to manage and run their sheep programs. We made enough money through the virtual convention that it didn't. We didn't have to make any operation cutbacks other than the normal travel that did happen through no traveling through COVID anyways. So where we thought we were going to have to dip into some reserve funds, we didn't have to. Membership hit 10,000 members for the first time ever. Life members continue to go up. So all in all, financially, the foundation is in historically, I can't say that it's been in the best shape that it ever has been, because I don't know the relative factors 25 and 30 years ago. But in modern history, the foundation is in the best financial shape it's ever been in, and we're very fortunate that we gambled on the virtual convention. We're very fortunate that the economy stayed strong, and that auction tags continue to break all records from a revenue standpoint. And it looks like at this point that we'll have a live convention in January, and we'll continue to increase our membership. And we're awarding more money for conservation grant and aids and hunter advocacy than we have ever in history, probably this year, if on the current fiscal year budget. So just lots and lots of good things from a financial standpoint.
Fantastic. So I guess be remiss if I didn't look for something that's of concern. So, is there anything from a wild sheep perspective that you see on the horizon that's of concern? Something out there that, we get a great update from our conservation staff, and the Wild Sheep Foundation has the best conservation staff in the world, in my opinion. Just fantastic feedback from our leadership there, Kevin, and all the great work that Clay's doing. And, so I guess the question there is there anything that you see that's of concern, or, we've had some localized issues. We had a Nevada water problem, that sort of stuff. Is there anything there that stands out for you right now, Tony?
Sure. I mean, the continuing drought in the western states has everybody worried. Amove's continuing issue that we've dealt with, and the conflict with domestic sheep and grazing. But now we're seeing wild sheep to wild sheep spread. So is that going to be a bigger problem than we anticipated? The aoudad issues in Texas again, and that goes back to that's a two-sided issue, because you've got large private land ranchers that rely on aoudads as income, and they don't really want to see them exterminated like a lot of the sheep biologists want to see them gone because of habitat conflict with desert bighorns. I think we have to really worry about restricted import issues, if that's going to be a way that the anti-hunters move with the current administration to limit what can be brought in from Mexico or Canada, like they've done with some of the other international sheep, Argali specifically. So we don't want to make it a nightmare where you shoot a stone sheep in BC or desert sheep in Mexico, and then you've got a problem trying to get him imported in the United States because of a bunch of bureaucracy that wasn't anticipated. The rising cost of sheep hunting. I remember I was hunting with Jim Fink in 2011, and we were sitting by the campfire, and we had a very serious conversation, and that's 10 years ago, not that long ago. But Jim said, my biggest worry about the whole sheep hunting thing is I don't know if it's going to be here, because who's going to be able to afford to go sheep hunting in 5 years? Well, we see so much enthusiasm from young guys within the Wild Sheep Foundation, and you go to the banquet. Go to the convention. It's a young guy deal. Look up and down those aisles. There's so many young guys there. It just makes you feel so good. And I look at my son. He lives and breathes sheep hunting. Now, whether he's going to be able to afford to do much of it, it's a whole different thing. But he's always, he puts in for tags, and he's always trying to figure out, how can I do this? How can I do this? So to make it accessible to first-time hunters, that's what we got to do. And my goal at Wild Sheep, if I could leave any kind of legacy at all, it'd be like a Wild Sheep FHA, like we have in the U.S., where it's some type of organization that brings, where we brought home builders and bankers and mortgage associations together to make it affordable for first-time home buyers. How can we bring the industry and outfitters and young hunters together to make sheep hunting affordable for first-time sheep hunters? If we can figure that out, we got a big win, just being able to continue with our raffles, with state sheep lotteries, with the chance to draw a tag, to win a hunt. It's all part of the North American model, and we just got to keep those young guys enthused, and don't let them give up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, excellent point. Makes a lot of sense for sure. Yeah, it's not intended to be a rich man's game. The North American wildlife model was never intended, right? It was accessibility to wildlife for everybody, right? It wasn't
sure
the wealthy elite, and we've seen the follies of that program in Europe, right? So, okay. Well, there's a lot to chew on there, and a lot for me to think about. Actually, that was great to hear all that, Tony. So, we've taken a lot of your day today, but I'd like to wrap up with just a little bit of, you've done a lot in the the sheep hunting world. You've been very successful. You're a member of the 700 Club, and so I'd love to hear a couple of your stories, and maybe you can talk about what the 700 Club is, what that means, what it's about, and then also about, maybe you can talk to us about your favorite sheep hunt, one that stands out, what that looked like for you.
Sure. Okay. Well, let me clarify that. I have 4 sheep that have been officially scored that score more than 700, and I've sent it in. I didn't send it in for a long time, and then I decided to. I don't think it's been officially recognized by JISCO yet, but they are official scores, and it is an official 700 Grand Slam, I guess. So, but it's not been published anywhere. So I just want to make that clarification. It was a serendipitous deal for me. I didn't set out to try and kill a 700 slam, but Bob Anderson, who wrote the Great Rams series, I think Bob originally coined the 700 Club and kind of uncovered those guys that were able to do that. He called it the smallest club in hunting. So essentially, what the 700 Club is if you have taken one ram of each recognized North American species, and their combined total Boone and Crockett gross score, or SCI score, totals more than 700, then you get to be a member of a 700 Club. And in reality, when you're dead, nobody will ever remember it. So it's not like it's a huge deal or anything. It was more of a personal deal for me. I actually, when I killed my last bighorn that tipped it over, I didn't even think about it. My son was with me, and he hit me on my back, and he said, "That's 700, Pops." And I said, "What?" He said, "That's your 700 ram." And I said, "You know what? It is." So, a lot of guys have the goal of, I need that ram to get there. I'm going to buy this auction tag to get there. It's been a great deal for Wild Sheep Society because it's really fueled individual auction tags where a guy needs a particular species ram to get him over. So you'll get 2 of those guys or 3 of those guys competing for an auction tag. And it's really driven the price of those auction tags up. I didn't have the resources or the benefit of using any auction tags for mine. So, and I've got a lot of memorable sheep hunts. Every one of them is super memorable. I don't know how you can say one's not. I hunted the same drainage in BC 3 different times with Prophet Muskwa and Gary Van He as my guide. The first 2 times we looked at a lot of sheep, didn't shoot one. I missed a ram, the only ram I've ever missed. It was raining, and Gary and he got really mad at me, and we ended up sleeping out in the mountain on the rain and didn't talk to each other for a couple of days. And now he's become one of my closest friends, and he's come down to Iowa and hunted whitetails with us and everything. I talked to him quite a bit, and like to think that I had a little bit of a hand in him getting the Dalzell Award or Galata Award at Wild Sheep. And so that was one of my most memorable hunts when we killed that big stone ram. We had rode up a drainage and climbed up and were glassing some sheep, and we couldn't find a ram. And I'd actually fallen asleep, and he kicked me in the back of the head, and he said, "There's your ram." I said, "Where?" And he said, "Look straight across." And I looked across, and this big lightning storm had pushed this ram out of some real cliffy stuff. And he said, I think with all these storms, I don't know if he's going to be there in the morning. We got to go now. I said, "You're kidding me, right?" And he said, "No, we're going right now." So, we got to him that afternoon, and we didn't get back till camp till about 3 a.m, I think, and it's probably the best ram I'll ever take. I mean, it's a 175-inch stone, but that's probably one of my most memorable hunts. Just being with anybody that's hunted with Gary knows he's got a really unique personality. But those early hunts with Charlie Stricker were pretty cool. Hunted with Art Napoleon, who was a pretty famous native stone sheep guy, the Napoleon family in northern BC, and learned a lot from Art, and had a few experiences on that hunt with some grizzly bears and quicksand. And I think more happened on that one single hunt than every sheep hunt that I've ever had combined. And he still, till the day Art passed away, he would say, more stuff happened to you and me on that hunt than any hunt I've ever been on. And I said, me too. I can't. Every day something happens. Somebody got kicked by a horse. We almost lost a horse in quicksand. Had 2 run-ins with grizzly bears, just one thing after another. So that was a great adventure. Just all kinds of things. I sat down and literally had 3 days to walk out on a Dall sheep hunt after I'd killed my sheep one time. And I kept thinking, maybe if I fake some kind of illness, a helicopter will come and get me or something. But I sat down on the trail. It was just me and Charlie Stricker. We'd gotten to the Bear River in the Yukon, and we tried to swim the horses across, but the water was so fast it kept carrying them downstream. Well, there was a boat on a cable there that you could pull back and forth. So he said, this horseback hunt just turned into a backpack hunt. I said, I'm not prepared to do a backpack. So, well, get your backpack. So we walked in 3 days, and then we had to walk out 3 days. And on the way out, as sheep hunters, we've all been there in this situation. And I sat down on my pack, and I just felt like tears were going to stream out of my face that I had 3 days that I had to walk out of here. And he said, I'm an old man. I'm 20 years older than you. If I can walk out of here, you can, and get up and get going. And he left me there. He was probably 2 miles ahead of me. And so I just kept going. And, it's sheep hunting's one baby foot in front of the other, and you eventually get there. That's the only way. So lots of great experiences with some great guides. Roy Rogers, Dusty Rogers, Roy Rogers' son told me that, and Roy Rogers was a sheep hunter, and so Dusty, his son, was too. And Roy told Dusty, if you ever really want to get to know somebody, go on a sheep hunt with him.
Huh.
And probably, few truer words were ever spoken.
Huh. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a great line. Two great lines there, though. 1 foot in the other, baby steps, and then that.
Yeah.
So, Tony, on that note, Steve's doing his first sheep hunt this fall, and you think back to, the last 30 years of your life, of all the time you spent in the mountains chasing sheep. What's your words of advice for young Steve here going on his first sheep hunt?
It's young Steve. Steve, even though you think it's physical, it's all mental. And
that's what I've heard.
If a Buddha-shaped guy like me can get through them, then you can too. Don't give up.
No, I look at Kyle and go, okay, I'm good.
Yeah. It only takes one. It only takes one.
That's what I've heard. I've heard that it's 98% mental, and that other 2% is still mental, but you think it's physical.
Yeah. And if you're really good tip, if you're taking Mountain House or freeze-dried food, eat a whole bunch of it ahead of time and pick out your best meals. One of my best friends, when I took him on his first sheep hunt, and we've hunted sheep a lot since then, but he didn't realize he hadn't tried any Mountain House ahead of time. When we got, we're backpacking along, and a full day into it, the plane's gone, the whole 9 yards. He didn't, what happened is Mountain House or freeze-dried food would still be in his stomach. It would still be expanding. So he couldn't eat he would just get sick as can be. So that's a good tip. Just make sure you can tolerate freeze-dried food and you like it before you actually go.
Yeah, I've had a chance to try the company out that I've ordered from and had a few different meals. Actually tried them in Reno in 2020, peak refuel, and went, wow, this is pretty good. And ordered a few, and wife and I have tried a few here, and I've replenished. I actually went and got that sausage and biscuit one, Kyle.
Oh, good.
You showed, and that looks pretty good. So doing okay on the food. I've had some great advice from Kyle. So I don't know if he's given advice or if he says, hey, watch, he'll come back with a funny story. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So on that note, Tony, what's last question for you? What's your plan for the fall? You chasing sheep? What's your plan?
No, first time, and I think, to be honest, my sheep hunting days are over. I've got a bunch of Wyoming points stacked up. I don't know what I'll do with them, but it's time for the young guys to draw some tags and book some hunts. I drew an Arizona elk tag. I'm in a great area. They're getting a lot of rain, so I'm excited about that. And I'll chase some antelope and some elk with my son, and some pheasants, and it'd be a great fall. Yeah, got a lot of memories of sheep hunts, but I don't know if there's many future ones coming up.
Right on. Well, fantastic. Tony, can't thank you enough for coming on the show, first of all, but on a much bigger scale for all of the work you do in the conservation community. I've always looked up to you and respected you, and certainly respect your counsel and your leadership on our board of directors. It's certainly a pleasure to serve with you, and you're one of the people I really look to. And everything you say and do is always well thought out, and I always appreciate everything you do to keep and put those sheep on the mountains. So thank you.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you, Kyle, for all you do, and thank you guys for doing the podcast. This was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure enjoyed it. So have a great day and enjoy your weekend. Thanks, Tony.
Well, good luck with y'all's fall.